Hey there, fools. Big T here, and I'm back with another video. And this one is gonna be a rant, maybe considered controversial. I'm not sure why. Yeah, I am. Of course I know why. But this is one of the reasons I came to YouTube in the first place. To go all the way back to my first video. I'm kind of poking fun at narratives that were happening at the time. Mainly to do with how the industry felt about Nintendo at that time and how they felt about the other consoles and the inconsistencies and stuff like that. And that's kind of the stuff that pushed me to make my channel in the first place, to again combat false narratives and inconsistencies. So that was like the core reason of me starting a YouTube channel to begin with. So even if I find inconsistencies when it comes to Nintendo as well, I will combat those, and I have in the past, and I'm going to continue to do that. So, you know, if you're looking for somebody to reinforce your narrative, that's not what I do here. There are a lot of channels on YouTube that are very successful doing that, but that's not what I do. I try to be consistent with myself and not with what people want me to be. So, with that in mind, the title of the video asks, what is better? What is Switch doing better than Wii U? And I already know what the main, answer to that will be. Well, it's selling better for one, so that's a pretty big thing, and that is a very important thing. I am, for one, super glad that the Switch is selling really well. But because it's selling well, that doesn't mean there aren't issues there. And some of the same issues that the Wii U was attacked for, and that's kind of my main reason to make this video. I put up a Twitter thing talking about basically the Switch ports, the ports from Wii U to Switch that were seeming to get more respect in the media, and you got analysis videos and all kinds of stuff. That when the Wii U versions of those games came out years ago, they were pretty much dismissed. And so that's the kind of stuff that bothered me about the whole situation. At the end of the day, do I care? No. Nintendo is doing well. That's mainly what I care most about. But I care that they do well so they can give me the stuff that I want from them as a company. And that isn't always happening. And so that's what I talk about. So yeah, so what exactly is the Switch doing better than the Wii U? And I will tell you, not much. I will say not much. Now, you can say, well, the games, and you'd be right. But the Switch is getting games because it's selling well. So that also ties into the fact that it's selling well, so therefore it gets games. And I've talked about this before. I talked about this in my video explaining why the Wii U failed. I have a two-part series. Go check that out. Go check both of them out. The video tends to talk about things that most people kind of ignore when it comes to Wii U. They kind of grasp at the lowest hanging fruit, and they go to the easy argument of, whatever. So let's start off this way. Take away the selling points for each console. Take away what, basically it's known for. The Switch at this point is known for, as far as its hardware, is known for the portability factor. You can take it on the go anywhere, and that's a big selling factor. And even games that you played before, maybe you missed before, have new life because I can play that anywhere. So, and I totally get that. I understand why that's a thing. So you take that away from the Switch, but let's not do that yet. Let's take away the Wii U's main factor, its main, not probably its main draw, but it's the quote-unquote gimmick that was supposed to sell the console, and that is the off-TV play, the isometric gameplay using the gamepad. So you take that away from each console, and what do you have?
It would just be another in a long line of dog shit, gimmicky, underpowered Nintendo trash.
If you look at the Switch to Wii U, you don't have much. You have a little better frame rates, some resolutions better here and there, 900p versus 720, that kind of stuff. Frame rates may be a little bit more consistent, nothing crazy. We're not talking, anything big. We're talking the difference between Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. We're talking, stuff that, is clearly better here and there, but it's worse in some ways as well. that's just the case. So you look at, what people say why the Switch is selling better. Well, some will say, well, it's easy to develop for. It's easy to develop for a console. The PS3 wasn't easy to develop for, not by a long shot, but it sold well. It sold well enough. And it was, Sony was an industry leader, and they pushed that console when the narrative in the media was this is a dud. Remember that? That was a thing. You had industry bigwigs talking about, even from Gabe Newell, and talking about how the PS3 was a dud. So, but in the Sony, they pushed, they spent a buttload of money to combat that narrative and make that thing sell.
Remember that PS2 backwards compatibility? That went away quick. All those card reader slots and all kinds of stuff. Gotta cut those costs.
Obviously, it hurt them billions of dollars in the hole, but it worked. And that's what Nintendo wasn't willing to do with the Wii U. And again, I'm not going to go into that because that is a big part of my video, or my 2 videos, about the Wii U's failure. So go check those out. So you take away the main selling factor, the main gimmick of each console, Switch being the portability, Wii U being the off-TV, blah, 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 the isometric gameplay. If you look at the Switch, and you look at the Wii U, there's not a whole lot of difference there. And some people will say, oh, it forced this and it forced that. That only happened in a few games. What main games did that happen in from Nintendo? It happened in Donkey Kong? No. Donkey Kong didn't even have anything on a screen for the Wii U. Star Fox, I think that was a big one, but that was like towards the end of the Wii U's life cycle. At that point, we knew the writing was on the wall about the Wii U. Star Fox being a traditional control setup or not was not going to save the Wii U. So there weren't really a whole lot of games, especially third-party games. Some third-party games did do that. And some third-party companies use as an excuse to why they aren't developing for Wii U. When the main excuse, and which we all understood at the time because we talked about it, was that it wasn't selling. Like if something is selling, you have more incentive to make games for it. And that's what happens, like it's very simple. Again, the PlayStation 3, hard to develop for, but it sold enough in the beginnings even, and then it picked up to where companies still develop for it. And they push through all those obstacles. If you take away the portability factor, there's not a whole lot there, especially over the Wii U. Like it's barely more powerful. It's a bit more powerful. That is the strongest thing you can say about the Switch over the Wii U, is that it sold well. You can't say the online is better. If you do, you're lying. You can't say the NES trickle-out games are better than the Virtual Console on Wii U. Now, Virtual Console on Wii U was lacking compared to Wii, but it's leaps and bounds beyond what we have on Switch right now. And we're talking about a console that's 2 years in. So it's not like, oh, you just gotta wait. And this is stuff that they established last generation that should have carried over to this generation. And we had to wait a year past the time that they said they were going to have the Switch Online ready to get this, because they delayed it for what? What is your argument against that? Backups, saving your game, something as simple as that, something we've done since the CD-based system has been a thing. A memory card, and you can back it up and put it on another memory card. We've had ways to do that. It didn't cost you. I mean, obviously you have to buy the memory card. And the same thing with, consoles. You got to buy the extra. If you don't have enough space, you got to buy an extra USB drive or whatever, or flash drive, whatever. You still got to do that. So that's still the same thing. But I'm not required behind a paywall to purchase your online service, which I may or may not like. I don't like, but I may not like. Why is that tied to me being able to back up my games? Like something that almost every device on the planet allows you to do without a service. I don't have to do that on my iPad or my laptop or on my PC. I don't have to pay a service to back up my files. And that's essentially what they're asking me to do. Let's say the Switch was sitting at 7 million right now. Do you think the narrative would be the same about how people feel about its features and its services? You think people wouldn't be screaming about the trickle-out NES Online games and saying that's the reason why it's not selling? Or saying, oh man, these little Joy-Cons that Nintendo didn't learn anything from the Wii or Wii U era. These little Joy-Cons and their motion controls, nobody wants that. That's why it's not selling. You don't think people would be saying that if it wasn't for the sales? If the sales of the Switch weren't great? And again, let's look at the games. We're not talking about on par, third party, or even close to that. We're talking about even games from the 360 PS3 era being ported over to the Switch that people would complain about when it came to PS3 to PS4 or Xbox 360 to Xbox One. Oh, those last gen games are coming over to, they're trying to resell you. People would be complaining about those same things on the Switch. Am I wrong about that? Like, what is the disconnect here? Like, I understand that, and that doesn't bother me. I'm a Nintendo fan still. You know, like, but I still understand that. What is this shielding that's going on? Like, why do we have this shielding happening? Like, I don't understand that. If we're gonna base the argument merit for merit, console per console, then that would be a thing. Like, that would be fine. But we're not doing that. We're not realizing. A lot of us aren't realizing that we're being told how to feel about certain things. We're being, it's a program that you don't even realize that's running in your background, but it is. The media, and I hate to talk about media or gaming media in any negative way because it happens so much and it's like easy to do and everybody does it, but these are the facts. You have gaming media that a lot of us go to for information that also has a lot of power and spins things to their own devices. You're telling me that the same game on Wii U is better on Switch because Switch sells better? In many cases, Captain Toad is worse because of the control setup. It was built ground up for the Wii U's gamepad. And if you go to the Switch, you got to do this kind of weird pointer thing that's not nearly as intuitive as the Wii U gamepad was. And, you know, I was initially excited for it, but then I realized, oh man, that the Wii U version is going to be better because of how it feels, how it works with the gamepad. And so later, I just felt like the port was unnecessary. Obviously, for Nintendo, it's a good thing because they're going to make more revenue. They're going to get more money out of the games. The console itself wasn't bad. People want to run this narrative of the console itself was bad, but they can't explain why outside of tiny little personal, you know, opinions of it. Oh, the gamepad. Well, you know, most games, you didn't need to do some isometric crazy thing. Most of the games that came from Nintendo didn't force you to use the gamepad. Super Mario 3D World, did it force you? No, it had some kind of rinky-dinky little things with the gamepad that you can do, but it didn't force you to use the gamepad. I played with the gamepad, but you could play with Pro Controller and not miss anything. These are the little fake, you know, discrepancies people come up with to try to combat why, you know, they felt the Wii U's hardware itself affected its sales, and it didn't. Unless it sold better, the narrative would have been the same. Well, they would have come up with something, and the other one is too hard to program for. And again, like I said, I dispelled that outright. Is the Switch controls options better than Wii U? I don't think so. I mean, I love the Joy-Cons, you know, but I can also acknowledge in my love of the Joy-Cons. See, I can also still look at the flaws of something that I like. I can also acknowledge in the joys of and the flaws of the Joy-Cons that they're really small. You know, they are really small. I've gotten used to them, but I can still acknowledge that they're small in my hands. I have pretty sizable hands, and they're not as intuitive as a Wii Remote and Nunchuck because they're not a one-to-one kind of pointer thing because of the bar, the sensor bar that allows you for full 3D range of movement. It doesn't have that. It mimics that. It tries to mimic that, but it doesn't have that. So the Wii Remote and Nunchuck obviously were more comfortable to hold in your hands, but it was also more intuitive. So there was this false narrative of the Wii U's hardware, it's superficial hardware, not the interior, but the Wii U's just hardware setup was detrimental to the console. Is just false. It's just false. So the control setup is nothing overly better. The online setup is not better. It's definitely worse because Wii U is free for one. And you look at the online service, if you want to compare like NES Online versus the Virtual Console, please. I mean, there's no comparison there at all. The Wii U destroys the Switch when it comes to its net features. The Wii U had a web browser that I used more than my laptop at the time. Even the YouTube app on the Wii U is better than the Switch's YouTube app. Where's Netflix? I mean, that's one of the biggest applications out there, and we still 2 years in don't have one for Switch. Wii U had Crunchyroll. I mean, I could go on and on. You know these things, I know these things, and I just don't understand why when I point them out there's this false disconnect. I feel like people just want to combat me, or people are afraid that if you say quote unquote negative things about Nintendo, it's going to hurt them, the sales are going to fall apart and it's going to be over. And that's just not the case. Me just talking about these things isn't going to hurt them negatively. Best case scenario, it helps positively. I can't believe in my heart of hearts that a person would be satisfied coming from Wii U. Maybe if you didn't come from Wii U, it doesn't bother you. But I can't see a person coming from Wii U being satisfied with the Switch's feature set, with the Switch's online. I don't believe it. And I just refuse to fall into the narratives. Post Dreamcast, the Dreamcast is the greatest console. I love it because the media spent it to be that way. But during the Dreamcast era, it was getting dogged, ragged. You barely even saw anything about it on like G4. G4 was the big thing back then, obviously. G4 basically ignored it. You had people talking about, oh, Dreamcast, I ain't buying no Sega console. I'm not buying no Dreamcast. I'm saving my money for PlayStation 2. Like, that's what I heard all the time. And Dreamcast, now that it's loved and lauded, but at the time people made fun of it. People had no problem ripping games to play for it. They did not care. Outside of like the awe factor of seeing Sonic in 3D for the first time, and outside of like the Sega Online stuff, oh man, people got excited about that, being able to play, the sports games. This is the first time this happened in gaming history on console. So people were excited about, playing Sega sports games online, stuff like that. But outside of that, nobody cared about Shenmue. There were a bunch of Shenmue fans at the time. I was obviously one of them, still one of them. But this narrative, this false narrative the media spins now that, oh yeah, Dreamcast was the greatest console ever, had the greatest launch line of all time. That was created afterwards. And, maybe Wii U will turn. I think it already is turning. I've seen channels and, some of the bigger channels try to go back and be like retroactively support it, which, whatever. I don't care. Like, at the end of the day, this is something to talk about on my channel. We've engaged on Twitter about this, and it's just interesting. I try to do that and not just serve you, let's talk about the Nintendo Direct that might happen, or let me give you my predictions on that. Like, that's my rant on this. Let me know what you guys think. Yeah, this is a real rant, and I didn't just put rant for clicks. This is a real rant. Some people do that, just put rant in the title for clicks when it's not really a rant. But anyway, what do you guys think? Am I a Wii U defender? Or whatever nonsense people come up with. Again, my goal on YouTube was to fight, what I felt were false narratives and inconsistencies, and that was like the main reason I came in. And obviously I'm a gamer, I love Nintendo, and I want to talk about Nintendo games and my gaming history and all that stuff too. So that's what I'm here to do, and I'm sorry if it doesn't fit what you want to hear. There's plenty of channels that all reinforce your opinions and not their own. They play to you, so you can check them out. Let me know what you guys think about this video in the comments below. Thank you as always for watching and listening, and I'll see you fools next time. Peace out.